Hello, family. I'm a Robin. I'm a real alcoholic. I want to welcome everybody to the Atlanta Step Up Society. Change your thinking, change your life. Big book study. Uh, let's open with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I want to say again, like Merry Christmas, and we're going into the new year, and Happy New Year. We have a few new people, and I just want to explain how it goes. This is the book study, and we study the book for an hour, and then we do Q&A if we have enough time. And every week we have like the CD, we make CDs and DVDs of the study. And I would tell you, we got them, the CDs and DVD from the very beginning. And the way it works is we usually try to charge $5 per CD. And I know a lot of people don't have a lot of money, but I was told that we always buy what we want, not what we need. So keep that in mind. And it's the only reason we do that because I found out, this is my first experience with CDs and DVD, it's not a cheap thing to do. Even when you think you can go cheap, the cheap one don't even work. You got to get a good quality one. I tried the cheap route. Trust me, they were spitting it out. It wasn't working. So just keep that in mind. And if I can get let me do something a little different tonight. One person who actually is listening to these CDs, can you come up here and tell the group how you are benefiting from it? Any one person who's really listening to them in their cars or whatever. Just give me one. Come on up so we can hear you. But no, they'll speak loud enough that we can hear you.
Oh, I got a big mouth.
Okay.
My name is Gwen, and I'm a great recovering alcoholic.
Hey, Gwen.
My name is Gwen, and I'm a great recovering alcoholic. And the reason why I benefit from it is because I can I can play the tapes back and stuff that I missed. I can go back. Sometimes I read along with it in my book, and it just tends to stick better because we learn better by rep- uh, repetition.
Right.
And it's really, really sticking. And I put it in I put it in my car and I put it in my house, and I just listen to it over and over and over. And it's just like what the alcohol did for me. It's getting to be addicted.
Thanks for
Letting me share.
sharing.
Thanks for sharing.
And I think everybody else is getting that same feeling, right?
Yes.
So it's very, very productive. I've been listening to CDs for the last 10 years. 10 years. In my car, all type of CDs from spiritual leaders, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Greg Bratton, Esther and Jerry Hicks, all the top leaders on spirituality I've been listening to for 10 years. So much so that radio personalities that's on the radio today, I very seldom do I even hear their voices. You know what I mean? I don't even really know them no more or what their programs is about because I listen to spirituality type tapes. Every time somebody come out with a new one, I go and buy it. And I wasn't hip to downloading them off the internet and stuff like that. I spent thousands of dollars. And even when I downloaded them off the internet, it still wasn't the same quality I was getting when I went out and bought the real ones. All right. And then I start sharing them with other people. So this method of learning definitely works. And it gives you an opportunity to keep it alive in your mind. That's very important. All right. As always, we talk about the disease of addiction first. We have a disease, it's twofold, it's mental and physical. We suffer from a mental obsession and a physical allergy. Anytime, we're going to see that throughout this book. Since we've been talking about the disease of addiction, when you read the book now, you can see it. I know people have read the book prior to the disease of addiction being in their consciousness. Now that it's alive in your consciousness, when you flip the pages, you say, oh Lord, you're going to take a drink. The allergies going to pop on. Then it's going to go on that craving, be in that well-known spree. Then he's going to emerge in remorse with all that guilt, shame, and all that stuff and start the cycle all over again. Well, that him we're talking about is you. This is not a secular book. It's not a history book. This didn't happen to Bill and Bob and the 180, 90 years ago. This is what's happening today to us. It's the same concept as always, and the same problems and the same solutions. So our disease is twofold. It's mental and physical. Our main problem centers in our mind. It used to be real hard for me to understand the mental part. And one of the reasons was because I did not understand what the obsession was. The obsession is a persistent thought that's continual. It doesn't change. It stays constant. And it's usually a disturbing thought. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Trying to tear you down. And so when I first came around, I explained that I didn't understand what an obsession was because that wasn't a word that I used in my vocabulary. Nobody around me used that word. Nobody walked around my neighborhood or in the bars with me saying, you know, we suffer from an obsession. We wasn't talking like that. So I really had no concept of what it was. And at the end of the day, my sponsor helped me to find out that it's one persistent thought that always been with me. Every time I got drunk or high. It was one thought. It would say, like, if I had a normal things I wanted to do, like 5 or 6 normal things, pay some bills or go to the grocery store or see my parents or take my kids somewhere, and I had all the normal thoughts in my mind, and I got some money in my pocket, on my way to do that normal stuff, it always was one thought that came to me. It kind of went like this. Beep. Hold it, Robert. Before you go do that normal stuff, just get you one. That's all it took. And I would listen to that thought. I would believe that thought. I would act on that thought. And I would get that one, and it would trigger the allergy, the craving in me. And I'm off to the races. Where once I start using, the craving becomes larger than my mental capacity. It was so big that my mind cannot stop me from using. That makes sense? From craving. That's when you become powerless. My mind, I be out doing my thing, and my mind be saying, Rob, don't you know you're supposed to take care of those kids? Don't you know you're supposed to pay the bill like you said? I could not yield to that normal thinking. I had to follow the craving until it was all over. That makes sense? That's the disease of addiction. And we all know that disease, which is our problem, really need to be out here. It really, really need to be explained to every newcomer that's coming into this program. There's so many people that do come into this program do not understand the disease of addiction. In the big book, it says, if you don't understand or you don't have the knowledge of the disease of addiction, you're starting your recovery journey incomplete. I have seen it where people go to treatment 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 times and never know the disease of addiction. How incomplete is that? But the buck stops here. We all going to learn it so we can teach others, so we can come disciples to teach other people this. That makes sense? All right, what we're going to do, we're going to get in the book tonight. We're going to go back to page 21. When there is a solution. In a book study, you don't have to worry about where you start. You just fit in. It doesn't make a difference. And if you want to go back and read, fine, because we're still in the beginning of the book. We haven't even got to step 1 yet. And we have the information on CD or DVD for you. So you can catch up. So you're not lost. We're going to start kind of what we're going to just briefly go over what we did last week. What about the real alcoholic? Y'all see that paragraph? We're going to start there, just read it, and then we're going to go right into the study. All right, Aaron.
But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker. But at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here is the fellow who has been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day, and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor. But in that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head by senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around, yet early the next morning he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves, so he can go to work. Then he comes. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all again over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums.
All right, let's stop there for a second. Last week we broke this down in detail, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time breaking it down. If you can identify with this, then you probably are a real alcoholic or a real addict. Okay? There's two things I want to just go over real quickly. In the middle of page 22 at the top, it says, as matters grow worse. As matters grow worse. That's a promise. If you keep using, you know how we read the promises in the literature? There promises all in this book. You get promises if you use, you get promises if you don't use. Any way you look at it, you're going to get a promise. You know, the promises ain't always on the good side. Go take a hit, you're going to get some promises there. All right, matters will grow worse. The second thing is, these people were using drugs and alcohol. That's all I got to say about that one. Do the next paragraph. This by no means.
This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary, but this description should identify him roughly.
Do the next one.
Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle, another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation. Why is it he takes that one drink why he can't stay on the water wagon. What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters?
All right, they're going to answer these questions. All right, but I just want to go over something. He says, "Why does it behave like this?" You know, each and every in the chapter before, each and every last one of our patterns can vary. Just because somebody didn't use the same way you did and they're in a fellowship, they're really not no different than you. I had different patterns of using, and especially drinking, that other people didn't have. One of my patterns was, and when it came to education, I always liked to think that I was kind of smart. So I was the type of person that used to hang around at bars. You know, like Cheers on TV, where everybody know your name. I had a few bars like that. And I remember going to the bar. This is one of my drinking patterns. I would go to the bar where everybody socialized at this one bar. We all knew each other. And I would go in there after work, and I would always register and go to night school. And I would go to the bar, let's say 6:30. Night school starts around 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. It wasn't far from the bar. I would go into the bar, and I have me a few drinks. I would leave the bar, leave my friends sitting at the bar, tell them I'll be back. I go to school, praying that they let us out early. You know, because night school, sometimes they keep you all the time, but sometimes they cut you real short. And I would pray that they let me out early, and then I would return to the bar and finish getting drunk. So the people would say, like, "Why do you even go to school?" I said, "Here with me." I said, "All of us in here is drunks. I'm just going to be an educated drunk." You know, so that was just, I'm just saying now, that was one of my patterns. It was different from theirs, but we all was drunk.
Yeah.
I was just going to be educated and drunk. And that's what it ended up being. Because I did get my degree, but I was drunk when I walked across the stage to get the diploma.
Wow.
All right. So the patterns vary, and then they asked all these questions. But here's what: if hundreds of experiences has shown him that one drink means another, and that word means great disaster or disaster, with all its attendant suffering and humiliation. Every time we go out and we get high, we always end up suffering and being humiliated. Every time, hundreds of times. Why is it he takes that one drink? Well, one reason is we don't know anything about the disease concept. And the obsession in my mind is insane thinking. Tell me I ain't going to get drunk and then humiliated and suffer like I did last time, which for me was last night. All right. Then it goes on and it start asking some more questions that they're going to answer for us. I want to kind of get on to the real meat of the program tonight. Go ahead. Perhaps there. Second paragraph on the bottom.
Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why, once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle.
They really don't know. Can't nobody really pinpoint why we keep doing what we're doing. You know what I'm trying to say? They know that if we kind of don't drink, we're like normal people. But I can't answer the question, why do I have the disease and my sister don't? I can't answer that question. But I do know that I have the disease and she don't. And I know I can't drink like she do. That makes sense? But why I have it and she don't, nobody can put a finger on that. And that's what everybody family in here. We got siblings in your families that do not have the disease of addiction. That makes sense? They can go out right now, have some beers and some wine, smoke a little something, something, and raise their family, send their kids to college, pay their house notes, pay their car note, make every graduation. You know what I'm trying to say? Live life on lifetime. And then there's us. One drink. Gone. They don't see you for 5 years. And we don't know why that happens to us and not to our siblings. That makes sense? That's a riddle that has not been explained yet. And I'm not even trying to figure out why. I just know what I have to do. Don't drink. I can't go out and have a glass of wine like my sister. I started drinking wine yesterday at the Christmas party. Didn't mean nothing to me. She told my wife, "How you married to him so long? You know he different, ain't he?" Oh, way home, I'm always telling her. Your sister said, "How did I be married to you so long? Cause you different." I said, "Yeah, I'm real different." My wife don't know, cause I've been clean and sober for the whole time. 17 years we've been married. I've been clean and sober. She don't know what different means. My sister do. All right, let's keep going.
We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this.
All right, here we go. We're finna get into it now. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, if we're not drinking, we don't put it in our bodies. Remember I told y'all about what, 30 or 40 people here tonight? Right now we are not craving. How many people right now want to hit tonight or drink tonight? Nobody. If I went out about 30 quarts of beer and 30 nickel rocks, and we this is in the book now, so don't say why he doing this. This is in the book. And we take a hit in the drink, how many people gonna want some more tonight? Everybody. Why is it when we not using, we don't put it in, we don't want it, but if we do put it in, we want it? It said we know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he react much like other men and women. We are equally positive, I just did that example, that once he take any alcohol whatsoever into his system, something happens, both in the body and mental sense. The disease kicks in. In the body, the allergy kicks in. In the mind, the obsession kicks in. All right? Which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. Our minds, once we start using and the allergy kicks in, one hit equal one craving. Since you're already craving, you're going to want some more. So you're going to have another hit. You're going to be craving twice. That's the formula. You have another hit. You're going to be craving 3 times. All the way down the line till you're craving, like, let's say you at your 6th hit or your 6th drink. You're craving 6 times more than you was at the first hit. The first drink. That makes sense. And it gets so big, we call it a monkey on our back, right? That your mind can't stop you from wanting and drinking some more and some more and some more. Your best thinking cannot stop you from continuing to use. That makes sense? So it says that it makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. Remember I did the story about a friend of mine who she always had a year clean. She was a real strong member in NA, which is good. She would get a year clean, relapse. Another year clean, relapse. 13 months clean, relapse. 15 months clean, relapse. She did about 6 times. Then she came up here. She started coming to this book study. And she came in my office. She said, well, I always relapse. She's getting scared because a year was coming up, right? And she said, I always relapse right after a year. I've been doing this for a lot of years. Then we sat in the office and we talked about it. Because, you know, if you're a good counselor, a good listener, and you know the disease of addiction, then you can kind of help someone, assist someone at trying to figure out where they go wrong. That makes sense? So she came in there and we started talking. And she told me this. She says, I do without drugs the whole year. And then I relapse. I said, well, what do you do? Let's go to what happens when you relapse. She said, this is what happens. I usually be driving home and I think I need some gas after my celebration. I stop at the gas station to get me some gasoline and I buy a beer. I always buy a beer. Then I drink that beer and I never make it home. But that's plain and simple. It says right here, we are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatsoever into his system, something gonna happen. Something happened. Geek Bill. So something happens. So I sat down and said, you know what? Not to put down no fellowship or nothing like that. Do what you want to, but I know what you need. You need to be a member in AA. Because technically, you can stay off drugs, but you can't stay off beer, which is alcohol. Because you don't think alcohol is a drug. Because you're going to train your thinking to believe that you just an addict. You're not an alcoholic. But it's the beer that gets you every time. So she came in a fellowship, worked the 12 steps in AA through this book here, and I know she got like 13, 14 years clean now. She just don't drink no beer. Once she got past the beer part, she don't use no more. That makes sense?
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
All right. Do the next paragraph.
Okay. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started or on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like a philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of the alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk.
It said that these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. The terrible cycle we talk about is the craving part. All right. So what they mean by academic, it's mean like you got the you will have the knowledge of it, but you wouldn't have the experience. That makes sense if you don't take the drink. It's kind of like these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the drink. You don't have to worry about the craving part if you never put it in. Your body cannot crave for more alcohol and drugs if you don't put it in your body system. That makes sense? It just won't happen. I hear people talking about, I'm going to do this nice. I hear people talking about my stomach be bubbling. I be passing gas and, they be thinking about it, right? Well, I don't call that, I just call that a bubbly stomach and you got gas. Because that's in no comparison of what you're going to have if you take a hit. You can't even compare them two. You think your stomach bubbling now, take a hit. Tell me about them bubbles. You know what I'm saying? You're not out there craving, you're not geeking, you know what I'm saying? You're not spending all your money. I'd rather be farting. That's the bottom line. That, you know what I'm saying? That's nothing but the truth. I ain't gonna take that hit to find out. But that fart gonna come into. It just ain't gonna happen. So it's virtually impossible for that to happen. It said thereby setting a terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, and this is the key. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. So we're gonna make a shift. For a long time, like 2 or 3 months, we've been only talking about the body, really, right? Now we're gonna shift into the mind. The main problem centers in our mind. Our mind. And that's why a lot of people have get a lot of psychological help. You know what I'm trying to say? And pay a lot of money for it. But a lot of us don't need psychological help too. All we need to do is find out not initially. Let me put that in there. We need to really find out what's in our mind that's always telling us to get that first drink so we can hear and train our minds to catch that. That makes sense? Yeah. I had got so good at that. Once I understood what the obsession was and how it worked in me, I had got so good at it that I could be going down the street and my mind say, Robert, before you go do what you got to do, go get you one. I say, shut up, obsession. You go get you one. I'm going straight to St. Jude's, or I'm going here. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not listening to you. Or sometimes it might repeat itself. Robert, hey, Robert. You know, and I would say, like, I would pray it out. God help me get this thought out of my mind. It's still constantly in there. You know, I would cuss it out. I would pray it out, whatever it takes. But the point was, it started to leave me alone. Because it knew I knew that it was there. So it probably was saying something, well, I might as well leave you alone. I'll go find someone else who don't know. So I had to train myself. I think the key for me, just for me, is the fact that I found out that it was a persistent, unchanging thought. So when I was looking for in a mind that was changing all the time, then I wasn't going to be able to find the obsession. That makes sense? It was too much. It's that one thought that's unchanging. If you don't believe it, look up obsession in the dictionary. Look it up in the Big Book dictionary, and then it'll tell you a persistent, unchanging thought. And I had a few more. But then when I found out it was unchanging, then I knew exactly what thought I had to be looking for. You know? So it goes on to say that the main problem centers in our mind rather than our body. Then if you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are that he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. We always got excuses for everything. So that just fit at home. You know, she did this and blame everything. You know, we talking about blaming tonight. We blame something on everybody else. So that fit right in sync, in consciousness of what we are. Fault finders everywhere else but ourselves. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholics drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy, but man, if you got a headache, you're going to try to explain to somebody, I'm going to beat my head with a hammer so I can't feel the ache, knowing good and well that you're going to have a bigger ache from hitting your head with a hammer. Alright? If you draw this crazy reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. I see working in a recovery environment, and especially with newcomers all the time, I see all the time on a continuous basis the inability for people to be honest with themselves. That makes sense? I see that all the time. I could be like going downstairs, walking back and forth. I could go downstairs, it could be a big pile of trash, and customers coming in and out the store. It could be a big pile of trash right in the middle of the floor. And there's 10 people working here. I could leave for 2 hours, and the store been open, 50 customers done stepped over it. I can bring all 10 people and this done happened, around the trash and say, why is it still here? And I get 10 different stories. Not one person will own up to doing it, and not one person will take responsibility to change it. Now that's okay. I'm gonna tell you what's really sick. I know it's wrong. This is how I learned about codependency. I get mad. I chew them out. Because I'm right about it. You're not supposed to leave that. Suppose somebody slip and fall. I'm the one got to go downtown to the courthouse and get sued. They go back to the recovery house and relapse. But I got to go to court. Because I know better than taking that first drink. And the sad part about it is, I go, after all them did all that correcting, this is years ago, I would come upstairs in my office and I would question myself. That's when I started finding out about codependency. Lord Jesus Christ, did I do the right thing by chewing them out? Do they love me anymore? Are they going to quit? You know, are they mad at me? That's codependency. If you doing something right and you got to go question yourself, you better buy that book, Codependency No More. That's just a little added flavor to the book study tonight. So you suffer from it. All right. Once in a while, girl.
Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more an idea why he took that first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are baffled a lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count.
You know, it says that once in a while they may tell the truth. You know, it will get to a point that I might tell the truth, well, I just really, really, really want to use, or etc. You know what I'm saying? But it says, and the truth, strange to say, usually as he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. I think that's about as basic as we can get. I don't know why I drank. I can't blame you no more. You know, I can't blame my family. I can't blame my job. I can't blame my boss. I just don't know why I did it. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. I don't know why I do the things I do. I don't know why I keep doing what I don't want to do. I just end up doing it. Sound like that guy Paul in the Bible. I must need a renewing of the mind. It says that some drinkers have excuses which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their heart they really don't know why they do it. You know, I have questioned myself a lot, especially when I was out there drinking and stuff. I used to remember my time I told y'all about I had my whole family come over and I made a big statement to them that I was never going to drink again, and I sat on my mama's back porch on the balcony and made amends and everything, and I really meant it. 100% I was really, really not going to use. That night I was lit up. And I can't tell you why I did that. When I had promised the world I wasn't going to use. I go so far as promise God I ain't going to use. Please, God, I'm telling you right now, me and you buddies, I ain't going to use. And I'm drunk. But see, I always believed in the God on the outside. The one that was in heaven, and I was here. So it was easy for me to leave God on the front porch and go on in the bar.
Okay.
He wasn't with me. That was real easy. I just go in the bar with the devil and blame it on the devil. That sounds funny now, but that's how it went. Right, Larry? That was it. God, stay outside. Devil, you come go with me. I had to blame you. I don't have to take responsibility. Y'all looking at me like I'm crazy. Once this melody, that means disease, has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game. You know, I always, from my experience with the military, you know, being a military officer and, living an infantryman at that, living in the swamps and going to the field a lot, and night maneuvers and all that kind of stuff, and shooting them missiles, and then I had an Eagle too. I remember when back in the day, I used to when I used to go to the airport, and if I had on my dress green uniform, when I would fly get on a Delta plane going anywhere, they would put me up front with the pilots. So I always had this thing where I could rest on my laurels. So I always believed that I could quit using anytime I got ready. I had enough experience in life to know I could beat this thing anytime I got ready. I was homeless with maggots on my body. Skid row bum, still saying I could beat this. I could beat this on my own. I don't need no help. I remember standing at a fire barrel, and the Highland Club is in every city. There's always a Highland Club. I remember standing at the fire barrel with two drunks, and we were drinking, and I saw the people going in and out that meeting on a regular basis. And the guys told me, I said, man, I think I'm going to go over to that meeting, and try to get clean, because I'm tired of that. They told me the meeting don't work. That's what they told me. So I stayed at the fire barrel with them another 5 years.
Wow.
And I said I could do this without them since it don't work. I never investigated it. And then when I got clean and sober, and I did go to the meeting, come to find out the people who were at the fire barrel were relapsers. I was listening to them. It didn't work. And they convinced me that it didn't work. So I always had this obsession in my mind that I was going to get this on my own and return back to my beautiful life on my own. And it never happened. The only way I got a better life is when I came in here and visit y'all and stayed with y'all. And then my life became better than any life I had before that. With all that military experience and all that stuff I did, like they say, the best day there can't even equal my worst day in here. I can honestly tell you that, because I have experienced both worlds long enough to know that this one is way better than that other one. All right, let's keep going.
But they often were down for the count. How true this is. Few realize, in a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
All right, this is me. Remember, I told you got to put yourself into this book. My family, my mother. This is a true story. Well, all of it true, but this is really true, with no added stuff in it. My mother and my aunts always have had a prayer group. Always. Ron, your mom been in there too. And they will pray for us for years on top of years. This is true, on top of years. And hope that one day we would exert our own willpower and rise up and and return back as productive members of society. That we wouldn't be killed out there or something like that. They did it for years. And when I got clean and sober, they told me that my family went so far, because I was homeless in Washington, D.C. They went so far as the whole prayer group went to Washington, D.C. with pictures and stuff, passing out pictures and stuff and asking everybody had they seen me. Now, somebody had told me up there that they were up there. The sad part about it is they did not know that we don't snitch. So if they did know, they wasn't going to tell it. You know what I'm trying to say? So I did have family and everybody ever hoping that we come back up. And y'all had it too. Yeah. I told you this is a family disease. It just don't affect us. It affects everybody. Who want to spend 10 years praying for somebody else? Nobody really want to do that. They would like to think one or two prayers and she up. Okay. But that's a long time to be praying for someone else. I can't. The book told me 2 weeks to pray for someone else. That's about far as I don't went. I ain't been no 10 years on nothing. But that's just me. I ain't spent no 10 years praying for nobody. That makes sense? All right. Go ahead.
The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic. He passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in particularly every case long before it is suspected.
It says that at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state, that's a condition, where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. And I remember I explained some of them powerful desires. I'm going to quit for this. And really, really, really 100% mean it. And it don't work. I'm going to go to college and not take another drop. Get all them student loans. Sign up all them classes. Get family member driving you down there to help you register. Going and buying stuff for your dorm. Remember all that, Erica? Well, all this getting the mini refrigerators and the clothes and the washing powder. You know, okay, you gonna quit. Flunk out. First quarter. Drunk. But that powerful desire was there. And it was real. That's my point. It was real. People on the outside might not think it was real, but inside you know it was real. They couldn't do it. All right, keep going.
The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring it into our consciousness with sufficient force. The memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago, we are without defense against the first drink.
That's deep. The fact that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure or blocked, have lost the power of choice in drink. We can't even choose whether we want to drink or not. We just continuously drink and use. That makes sense? There's not even a choice about quit. No, it's kind of like it's got us. I'm just going to drink. Our so-called willpower, our mental power, the will is the thinking, becomes practically non-existent. We have no mental power whatsoever to stop using. So 100% alcoholic. We are unable at certain time to bring into our consciousness, bring into our mental mind with sufficient force the memory. We can't even bring in the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Let me give y'all one of the most horrifying stories I heard. So I had a guy in our program, and he had, it's kind of ironic though, he had his foot cut off. The toes was gone on his foot. And he told us that story, and we was all in awe. The reason he had the club foot is because, now this listen to this. He was in the hospital. Well, let me go to the beginning. He was using on the railroad tracks. You know how you're on the railroad tracks? He's up on the top on the hill on the railroad tracks, and he was using. He had his foot on the track. And the train, but he was under the train, with his feet on the track. And they cranked the train and moved it forward. The train ran over his foot and squashed all his toes. He passed out. The ambulance, a guard that walks the tracks, to clear the train, it's a attendant up there. They cleared the train to make sure nobody's there, found him, called the ambulance, took him to the hospital. That's the story of how he got to the hospital. Let's go back to the part about the memory of the suffering and the humiliation even a week or a month ago. He was in the hospital. Looked down at his feet, realized one was shorter than the other. It was bandaged up. The doctor came in and explained that they had amputated his toes, all his toes. He didn't have any, and they wrapped it up, but he was going to be okay. And they were going to make special shoes and this and that. And they kept coming to change the bandage. So he was able to see that. Now, he got that way from using. His story is 3 days in the hospital, he didn't have defense against the first drink or drug. He got up, took them IVs out his arm, grabbed some crutches, and hopped out of the hospital to go get high. And he got about a block or two away from the hospital and then started bleeding again, and he passed out. Now, that's a person who can't remember the humiliation and suffering of even a week ago. Now, I couldn't remember last night. I was started all over again. But that was one that truly explains this paragraph. That makes sense. We are without defense against the first drink. That's what our problem is. We need a defense. We need something that can stop us from taking that first drink. It's all in that first drink. If you don't take that first drink, the craving is academic. You don't have to worry about that. So it's still in our mind. That makes sense? All right, you do the next one.
The almost certain consequences that follows taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove.
Do the next one.
The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in the nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have that thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop with the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?"
All right. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. That baffles my wife, because she's not an addict, and she's been around this fellowship in Atlanta Stepper as long as I have. We started this program together, and it's still bad for her when somebody come into treatment and they stay 3 months, 4 months, and then they go take a drink and start it all over again. She cannot figure that one out to save her life. But all the education that she had around it, it just don't make sense to her. Why would you want to return back to the slime? You know what I'm saying? And it says that if these thoughts occur, they are hastily and readily supplanted with the old threadbare ideal, and that's just a worn out, weak ideal, that this time we should handle ourselves like other people. Remember I told us that we cannot drink like other people? Every time if you just look in your own history, there's somebody in your family or some close friend that was able to drink and drug, but didn't get the consequences that you got.
Okay, now.
And we will look at that person and say, well, and mine was Haywood, my cousin Haywood. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna have a good time, but I'm gonna drink like Haywood. I ain't gonna end up in Geekville. And I always use Haywood. But Haywood didn't have the disease, I did. But I always wanted to drink and drug like Haywood. But here's the bottom line there. I don't even think about Haywood no more. I can't drink and drug nothing like no Haywood. That makes sense? Yeah. But I always use him to want to do it better than I did. So it says that there is a complete failure of this kind of defense which keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. Then they go on and say that we have no defense. If you go to a hot stove and you put your hand on a hot stove, it burns you. You never return. Your mind registers that and says it's going to be hot. You're going to get burnt. Don't do it again. Especially when that flame, you might can get past that one. But burnt one of them red electrical ones, put your hand on that one. You know, the electrical stove. That's an ouch that's going to be there. But we keep returning to the fire and getting burnt every time. Do the next one. When this sort of thinking. At the very bottom.
When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid and unless locked up may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But from the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot.
All right, check this out. It says right here. All right, we're talking about the mind. Remember now, we're talking about the mind. So this book gonna take us deeper and deeper into the mental thinking of the alcoholic. It says right here, when this sort of what? Thinking. When this thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. That makes sense? When you got this sort of belief system going on, you are probably beyond human aid. That means you need some spiritual aid. And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These sharp and ugly facts have been confirmed by thousands of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there will have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but cannot. Now let me tell you something that's very, very important. We're going to start studying about the thinking. We're going to have to change our belief systems. That makes sense? And what I mean by that, a lot of time I go to meetings, and I hear this all the time. What, like you go to meetings and they say, like, what you going to do differently now? Somebody might, let's say you used on Boulevard, right? Somebody say, what you going to do differently now? I'm not going to walk down Boulevard. I'm going to take North Avenue. I'm going to walk down Renaissance Street. Well, that's what you're doing differently. But if you don't change your thinking, you're going to walk to the Doug man. You're going to walk to the bar. It's your thinking that has to change. Your belief system has to start changing. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Not what you do. It's what you think. You got to change your thought system. You got to believe that you have the disease of addiction and know it 100%. You got to start changing your belief system, not just what you're going to do. I'm going to do a 90 and 90. That's what you did last time. Am I wrong? I'm going to pay my bill. That's what you did last time. Okay. You got to change your thinking. Your thinking got to be changed. That's why we do these books. That's why we have these tapes that you can go back so your thinking can start to change. I was talking to a friend today. He talking about financing. Do it. You can do something different, or you can change your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something about changing your thinking. Now, this not even on the alcoholic sense.
Yeah.
My wife always wanted a credit card machine in this store. I fought that battle for 3 years, maybe 4. Ain't no credit card coming in here. I don't like credit card machine. Ain't nobody gonna use it in no thrift store. At the end of 4 years of fighting, I finally broke down and let the credit card come in. The first day, sale went up $1,000.
Wow.
And been there ever since.
Change the thing.
It was my dumb thinking that kept us in the poorhouse. Now, my whole, I tell everybody, I ain't going nowhere without a credit card machine. Those things work. But I was thinking they didn't work. That makes sense? Wrong thinking. Alright, I just want to do something real fast. I'm going to take it from here. There's a solution. Because I got 5 more minutes. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcoming, these like the steps, which the process requires for its successful consummation. You're going to have to work these steps in order to recover. But we're going to show you how to do it. So that's not going to be hard. And you're going to be prepared to do it. Because you're going to have a recipe to do it because you're in the book study. The book study prepares you to do the steps. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. So the way we were living before, we know that don't work no more. We have to believe that don't work. Some people still believe that they can go out there and try it another way. You got to believe that don't work. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. I used to go to a meeting years ago, and they would take all the big books. Let me tell you how ignorant I was. Take all the big books and just lay them on the floor. And then as you come to the meeting, you have to pick it up and study. And they would tell you, you got to pick it up and work it. I thought they were ignorant till I saw this. There was nothing left for us to do but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. So that's what they was implying. That makes sense? You pick it up out of the ground if you want it. If you don't, step on it and keep going.
Okay.
We found that much of heaven, we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into the 4th dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. We live in a 3-dimensional thing. I told y'all that before. The 4th dimension is kind of like infinite, spiritual. It's just as real as the 3rd dimension, but we spent so much time in the 3rd dimension that we don't know how to pull from the invisible spiritual world of God. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And we're going to study this next week. I just want to do one thing tonight. So I give everybody something to think about. So when we start going into their solution, we're going to start going into spiritual work in here. Okay. And when we start going to spiritual work, it's something you got to know. You got to know this. The great fact is just this and nothing less. That we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences. Okay. These people went through some deep spiritual experiences, and you're going to get the opportunity to enjoy it also. Now, I'm going to go to Appendix 2. I'm going to read it, but we're going to study in detail next week. It's on go to the rear of the book, page 567. 567. Y'all see it? The end. I ordered 10 more books, and they cost $12. So they should be here at the next meeting. And you're in step up and you looking at it over somebody's shoulder, you know you wrong. All right. Spiritual experience. Here it is. The term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book. We use it in the rooms. Right or wrong? Upon careful reading, that means what we are reading it carefully, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. When they say spiritual experience, or sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, we're talking about spirituality. Not getting no job.
Okay.
Not joining a relationship. We're talking about spirituality. Then it goes on to explain it. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality change or religious experiences must have been in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is wrong. Erroneous. They make you, Bill had a spiritual experience. Quick. God came into the room, you know what I'm trying to say? And the light, bright light. Like if you saw Malcolm X, he was in jail, remember that? The Elijah Muhammad, the bright light came in. Tina Turner had a spiritual experience. Yep. She was, Ike was tearing her butt up for years. Tearing, whooping that butt. Then she got tired of it, didn't she? She went and went to her girlfriend's house. She started studying Buddhism with the beads and learned how to meditate. She went back to Ike. He got in there to tear that butt up. She tore his butt up and left. Never to get a whooping again. That's spiritual experience. It happened quickly. You understand what I'm saying? So it says that to happen quickly, to get it like slain in the spirit, we'll say, or something like that, that ain't how it happened for everybody. It goes on to say, in the first few chapters, a number of sudden and revolutionary changes are described. The first revolutionary change we have discovered is understanding the disease of addiction. Okay. That's revolutionary. Everybody in this room should have a concept of the disease of addiction now and how it works. Though it was not our intention to create an impression that you're going to get it quickly, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by vast change in feelings and outlook. People think that God got bam, and they got it. That's not right. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, that quick transformation, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety because they develop slowly over a period of time. Most of us have spiritual awakenings. That makes sense? And we get spirituality slowly over a period of time, not fast. I told y'all I'm kind of glad I got it slow. But if I got it fast, I've been gone. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realized that he has undergone a profound altercation in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. By coming into this fellowship, and we're going to study this later, it's like Jacob's ladder. It's like what was his name? A guy just died, a very, very great spiritual leader that I got his name in there. And I studied a lot of his work. I just can't remember it now. And I'll give it to you next week. Well, he talks about the different levels of spirituality, from the bottom, being dead, all the way up to bliss. And he says that AA operates at like a 400. So let's say a newcomer and you operate on a 50, under 100. You come into the fellowship and the fellowship operating on a 400. But you don't do no work. So you think you at 400 spiritually. And then something happen, you bam, you really are at a 50 and you out. Because you operating on AA spirituality. That makes sense. And you ain't do no work. So you never got it. Because you thought you had it because you operating on AA. So it says that with few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource on the inside, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. All of these people, including myself, found a power that's greater than us inside of ourselves. Yeah. Now, this is just me. I tell people all the time, when my mind makes me think, this is just me. That God's right. If I'm sitting here and he's sitting right there, that's too far for me. Because I leave him in that chair and go and do what I need to do. It got to be in me. Okay. It got to be with me. That makes sense? And then the Bible talks about that all the way through. Mm-hmm. The 12 steps talk about that all the way through. The Father and I are one. It says right here, most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. The awareness. When you become aware that there's a power greater than yourself and it's inside of you, that's your spiritual experiences. All right, man. That's been born again. This ain't no joke we playing here. This is real. You're going to learn about all this stuff. I'm just getting you ready for next week because they're going to start teaching spirituality. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. How can a religion say God consciousness and talking about an outside God when your consciousness is in you? Maybe they didn't mean outside. Maybe they meant inside also. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problem in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. You got to change your thinking. Yep. Open your mind. If you've been taught something else, you might need to change that thinking system now. Okay. Because it did not work. Mm-hmm. Do you believe something? You followed it and you sitting in here? Maybe it didn't work. Okay. We do that with anything on the outside. Buy a watch and it don't work. We throw it away. Buy a hoopty. It don't work. Throw it away. Buy a pair of shoes. They're too tight. Donate it. Get a guard that don't work. Keep it. Okay. This is real talk. I know some people gonna say, "Man, the hell with him when you walk out that door." He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerant or belligerent denial. That's deep, ain't it? Yeah. Very. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-minded are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. They're absolutely necessary. Okay. Now here's the deal. We're going to re-study all this next week. There is a principle which is a bar against all information. There's a principle that will bar you against or keep you outside of all information, no matter what kind of information is trying to come at you. Which is proof against all arguments and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. You can be in everlasting ignorance because of one thing. The principle is contempt prior to investigation. What that means is don't knock it before you try it. Thank y'all for a good meeting.